Today we are breaking down the home inspection. We are going to share everything that you need to know about the home inspection. So whether you are somebody who is going to be buying a home or even selling a home anytime in the near future, you're definitely going to want to listen in until the very end. This is just going to be home inspections 101, home inspections frequently asked questions, and everything that you need to know going into this.
Super good topic. And it's so like underrated, I think. Not a lot of people talk about the home inspection period, which it is like one of the most crucial times in a home buying process. I mean, the first step is earnest money. The second step is home inspection. And generally, I always write in a 12 business day period for the inspection period. And I write 12 days because it gives us just over 2.5 weeks technically when we're counting business days.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we were in a period in time where multiple offers, 10 offers, inspections were being waived, I'm curious for those buyers that waived the inspections, what the aftermath, what the afterthoughts were once closing happened. Did they find out something they just didn't know about the property? Because during every home sale, we get something called a seller's property disclosure agreement, which the seller's supposed to list all the things they know about the property history, septic, well logs, that type of thing. But what we have come to find is a lot of times sellers mark unknown, or they just simply don't know the answers.
More often than not.
Think about it. They're not the professional here.
They usually actually don't know. Either they don't want to be held reliable, accountable, whatever, because unknown is an option, or they literally don't know because they didn't build the house themselves, or they didn't replace the roof, or they just can't remember. There's so many situations. Usually it's unknown is the answer.
So the liability side, if you're a home seller and you have that property disclosure agreement, I mean, it's sad but true. A lot of it's unknown. And I can't recommend you do anything because I don't want to tell you to do something, but you're not a licensed professional here. You don't know the actual quality. You didn't build the home. Say you're the second or third owner of this property. You're just stating what you know on this pamphlet, and the buyer reviews it at the end of the day, and that is attached to every sale agreement when we close escrow. But for the sake of the inspection period, what do you want to go over today?
Okay, so I guess inspection period, we can talk about that too. But I really just have, honestly, like today, we have a lot of questions. I'm just going to fire them at you. And they are all basically questions that we as real estate agents get asked the most, just about the home inspection in general, like the actual event of the home inspection from buyers.
Okay, so I love it. I'm going through one right now. We just put one under contract as of today.
Beautiful.
We just entered the inspection period.
Beautiful. How was it? How was the inspection?
Well,
have you got it back?
it's being ordered right now. So
that
it's on the calendar.
Is a good place to start then. So how long can a home buyer expect to wait from the time that the inspection takes place until they get that inspection report back?
Okay, that's a great question. So the inspection takes place on one day. The next day, usually you have your report. It's usually a 24-hour turnaround. So
especially
if it's not the next
guy.
day, it's definitely 2 days at the latest, depending on the property. I mean, if you're dealing with $1 million property, 500 square foot home, inspections tend to be a little bit bigger, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Those reports could be a lot longer. But generally, the turnaround time for a regular residential home is 24 hours. And if you're in need of a professional licensed inspector, I got one that I use on my personal properties. Most of my out-of-state clients, they love him, and his rate is terrific. So feel free to reach out to us. If you are looking to make a purchase here in Oregon, we can definitely refer you to a qualified inspector.
Yes. Okay, so how often do you actually see, as a real estate agent, buyers purchasing homes without an inspection?
So, I mean, it used to be more common when
I think so
we
too.
were getting more and more multiple offer situations, especially when we're like not 500, but 50,000 over ask price, and they're making the appraisal gaps on these. Well, the only way to get under contract when you're competing at that level in competition with others is you're going to waive an inspection period. I thought that was pretty normal, 2.5, 3 years ago. Now, basically on every sale agreement, I do see an inspection being listed. Now, if there's a qualified buyer that is just like nails and they want this property, they're going to look better than maybe a prospective offer because they don't want to lose out on the home. Maybe you're a handyman. Maybe you are a contractor yourself and you are confident in that type of work, in doing remodel, but piping, foundation, roofing, those type of items, that's where I'll generally see a home inspection waived. But in recent times, I just haven't seen many inspections being waived.
Yeah, me neither.
There's really I wouldn't say it's unnecessary, but I don't think it's necessary right now to waive the inspection because $400 bill at the end of the day to save you possibly thousands of dollars in the long run is definitely worth it. And generally my inspector is going to package the sewer scope. So meaning he's going to put a camera down the sewer line, make sure there's no clogs and make sure the flow is good.
Yeah.
And then he's also going to package in a radon test, which is in the soil, the dirt, it's cancerous material.
Yeah.
And in some areas, I mean, radon is a thing. And unless you do the test, you don't know about it. It's an invisible radiance, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I'm surprised thinking back at how many home buyers were waiving their inspection, waiving their inspection period in their offers back a couple years ago when things were so crazy competitive in the housing market. We never advised buyers to do that. Yeah. We legally cannot and should not advise them to do that. We always advise them to get an inspection. However, it was so crazy competitive. A lot of buyers were like, we've written like so many offers, none have gotten accepted. We need to do whatever we can. And so just a little reminder, guys, just going to throw that in there. If you are somebody who is waiting to buy a house until interest rates drop, that's what happens when interest rates drop. Yeah. You have to, I wouldn't say you have to, but it is so much harder to stand out and write an offer when it's so much more competitive.
How are you going to look different than anybody else competing when you're in a multiple offer situation?
Yes.
Waiving inspections is usually rule number one.
Yeah.
The second option would be to usually release earnest money, non-refundable to seller with that verbiage, because that's automatic money for a seller if you didn't go through with it in the inspection period.
Yeah.
One thing though that I kind of glossed over, you asked, when do I usually see a home inspection being waived or how?
Yeah. When is that
another scenario would be with a for sale by owner situation. I see this often when a buyer is wanting to solely work with a for sale by owner with no representation. Usually they just have a lawyer draw up the agreement, tries to make it as simple as possible. Yes, there are possibly more fees involved that way, but there's a lot more unknowns, and it's because you're not being represented as a buyer and nobody's actually telling you, you should probably get a home inspection. You're just doing what the seller, aka for sale by owner, is saying to do because you think you're getting a good deal. And I say that in quotations if you're viewing this on video, because ultimately you could lose out and have to pay a lot more money in the long run if you don't get an inspection. So usually I recommend, if you're working solely with a for sale by owner, try to have a buyer's agent representing you in the sale, because we'll take care of the contracts for you and we'll close it at a TICOR or title office that fits you guys' needs attached with the seller as well. So we can basically represent you the same way a lawyer would, but we would just get paid a 2%, 2.5% commission, just like anybody else is willing to pay.
Right.
So if that's you and you are looking into purchasing a for sale by owner and quite don't understand the selling process, and you don't want to do exactly what the seller tells you to do, because, I mean, that's not smart. I think just somebody telling you and you saying, okay, there's no negotiations there. And honestly, you just feel like you're dictated the whole time. And once you get through the process, sold, you put your name on the dotted line and there's really nothing to do. I mean, for sale by owners don't even have to include a seller's property disclosure or anything. Yeah. It's kind of like the Wild West, especially if a lawyer's involved. They draft the documents, file it with escrow, title deeds in your name, done. Yeah. So just keep that in mind if you are working with an outside party with no representation. Yeah. Sometimes it's better off to have a buyer's agent representing you, actually doing the correct sales process for you.
Yeah, it is in your best interest to have your own legal representation as a home buyer, and the buyer's agent, the person that represents you as a buyer, costs you $0. We are free to you as a home buyer. And if you are somebody, by the way, who is thinking about buying a home outside of the state of Oregon, contact us and we will set you up with a solid realtor. We have connections and collaborate often with other agents all over the country who are top solid agents that will do a really great job for you. You don't want to leave who you work with up to chance. And of course, if you are in Oregon, we'd love to work with you. Contact us. Okay, so another question before we get into really the most commonly asked home buyer questions about the home inspection. Should a home seller, in your opinion, get an inspection done or have an inspection done themselves before they list their home for sale?
This does happen from time to time. You know, if you've had a home inspection done within the last 2 years and you have that on file, the report ready in PDF form, I always love it because I can attach it to the listing. Does
I love
that
it too.
mean But here's the big deal.
What?
Does that mean the buyer's not going to do an inspection when they decide to purchase?
Nope.
Odds are the buyer's going to have their own inspector doing it because there comes like this trust boundary. Even though you hired out to an external source, it's not you doing the inspection.
Yeah.
They still have this sense of like, I didn't do this. I need more clarification. What if this was your best friend doing the inspection? Right. So there's that liability side.
Well,
just because you as a seller has that report doesn't mean you're going to receive an offer and there won't be another inspection performed. I just want to clarify that.
Right. No, and I've seen buyers actually want their own inspection in that case because they're like, well, if they went out and got this done, like they must be trying to hide something. Why would they go out and do this? Because it is the buyers, like routinely, it is the buyers who pay for it and do the inspection. And I've also seen sellers get upset and annoyed when the buyer wants to have an inspection after they already had one, which that's normal protocol. So you can, and I don't think it hurts to do. I think a lot of times, I mean, there are instances where it helps the sale go quicker and more smoothly because the buyers are trusting and they're like, perfect, we don't need an inspection. So it's all circumstantial, but don't do it and be like, I don't have to worry about this now, because they might still want their own.
Well, in retrospect, you and I did that on our first home sale. We had an inspection done when we actually purchased the property. We ended up turning around selling the property sooner rather than later. And it was actually good to do because we had a to-do list. We did a list of chores to basically make sure the home was ready to sell. So we anticipated what maybe another inspector would find when he did his own inspection report. So in that way, if you're like doing an inspection as a seller to knock out the list of items maybe you might already know of, but ultimately what you fear might come up when you're in a home sale, it's by far better to do it sooner than later because it could be cheaper for you. You won't have to be stuck in the verbiage of the buyer's agent sending you the buyer's inspection repair addendum. And usually that means you got to hire out, you got to have a contractor, they all have to be licensed. And if you're a seller and you're qualified to do these things, it could save you a pretty penny.
Here's the thing. The buyer, when they write the repair addendum for to go along with their inspection report, they can say, and oftentimes do say, we want this particular company or person to do this repair. And that very well probably will cost you a lot more than if you have somebody maybe who you could do it at a cheaper price. And then if you get it fixed and it's actually fixed correctly, then it won't come up again on the report and you won't have to do it. So there's pros to that and cons. Okay. So how much should a buyer expect a home inspection to cost?
Depending on the home, square footage, and property size, I mean, I see them range from $350 to about $500. My guy is going to be about $400. $375 to $425. Okay. That's generally what his reports come, and that's the general home inspection. And then say you want a sewer scope, a radon test, those are additional fees, usually about $50 to $75 more bucks per item. So I would recommend, save up $500 to $550 for the total amount of inspections, including sewer scope and radon testing.
Okay, so we already answered this. Who pays for home inspection? It is the buyer's responsibility to pay for their own home inspection when they are in the home buying process, purchasing a property. What's the difference between the home inspection and the home appraisal? Big
difference, I would suggest. I mean, and I actually get this question when in regards to sellers, because back a year ago, every seller seemed to get a refinance because the rates were so low. Well, we're back into 7%. Nobody's refinancing. But what comes with the refinance is an appraisal. And I mean, a conventional loan appraisal, they are in and out of your house usually. They're just doing a simple comparison. But these FHA appraisals are usually looking at roof condition and hot water heater or just a safety, whatever's a safety or a hazard. Exposed wires, for instance, something that could light a house on fire in the long run. But when it comes to a home inspector, they're looking over like hundreds of items and they're going room by room, electrical outlets. They're a lot more thorough. And these appraisers, they're looking to make sure that the property is comparable to another property that's sold recently. Not at the actual little details that, a cracked ceiling might have, They're looking for, is this house going to fall over? Is it a decent investment? Is it been taken care of for the loan amount? They're worried more about the money side rather than the actual condition side. Don't get me wrong. VA appraisals, FHA appraisals, they are a little bit more, what should I say?
Thorough.
Detail oriented, thorough,
Yeah.
but nothing incomparable to what a home inspector is going to be going and doing for the buyer. Their reports are usually, 10 to 12, 15 pages long, and they go through every category of the home, all the way up to foundation, to the ceiling, to make sure there's insulation, an appropriate amount of insulation even.
Make sure there's
in
no
the attic
mice
space
living under the house.
Yeah.
Mice making the family there.
So a home inspector is a lot more thorough.
A lot different. The way I see it is, or I look at it as, the appraisal is a lot more similar to having a market analysis done on your home by a real estate agent, like figuring out what realistically is your home worth, what should it sell for, that type of thing. And then for the home inspection, you can expect a report, an inspection report that's going to tell you different categories. Like, these are the things that you need to fix ASAP. They're hazardous. These are things we recommend fixing somewhat soon. These are things that are a little more mild. And then like, these are all good. So you're going to see like a in-depth report.
Absolutely.
As far as that goes. Okay. How long do inspections take, and do I have to be there as the home buyer?
So the buyer, you have an opportunity to be there. That's your second option to view the home for about 2 to 3 hours, I would say. I'd say it's definitely 2 hours and plus. It's not going to be in and out in 45 minutes to an hour. Some inspectors bring like a secondary or a third guy with them, so it can go quicker. But this is your opportunity as a buyer to come back to the house, because remember, we just showed the house, we wrote an offer's been accepted. Usually a week later is when the inspection is going to be scheduled, then performed. So this will be your second opportunity to physically be at the property without the seller there. Usually I only see the sellers there during a for sale by owner situation.
Yeah,
they don't want to leave their house, and I consider that to be a little bit of a problem. If I'm representing you, I'm happy to be there and representing you, and you don't have to be there. I have to let the inspector in, of course. So I'm giving them keys and access. So I'm already going to be there as the represented agent. But I always do ask that sellers are gone. Sellers leave the premises, because you as a buyer did pay for this. You paid for this opportunity, and the seller not to fill things to your inspector, because everybody can some ways get manipulated or something. And I honestly want to honor my inspector's time. And if a seller's there talking his ear off and they're going through step by step every room.
It doesn't change. Like, they know what to look for and they know how to do it.
Exactly.
You're not going to change the outcome.
They have the routines and processes. So I do always ask sellers to be gone. Buyer, just let it be known, this is your opportunity to be present. I always say respect and honor your inspector. Let him do the job, not you. If there's any concern or question about an item or visual site that you see, yeah, of course, let's ask them about it. But generally, you're going to kind of be and remain quiet during that period, but have access to the home as well.
A lot of buyers will use that opportunity as a time to bring their measuring tape and take some measurements of the rooms, kind of get a feel for, like, will my couch fit here, or do I need to sell it and get a new one? That type of thing. However, for my circumstances, the majority of the time that I have home inspections going on, my clients are not there, because usually they're out of state. And so usually they aren't able to fly in or drive down just for the home inspection. And in that case, I am always happy to handle everything regarding the home inspection for my clients, from scheduling it, finding the inspector, scheduling it, showing up, handling it all. And then you just get the report and we move from there.
Totally.
So, okay. What happens if something goes wrong on the inspection report?
Well, you always have an opportunity to negotiate or back out. The Oregon Sale Agreement is really written in your favor. If you guys aren't able to come to a conclusion with the seller, either money related or item related, you can terminate and just say, you know what, I got to move on. Not the right home for me, or there's too much work that I was unknown about. That was unknown. Yeah.
So my final thoughts on this, my final tip on this home inspection, is something I've seen happen a handful of times before. Was so I'm working with some buyers, and they find a house that they love, and they are so genuinely excited for them. It is in the neighborhood that's perfect for them, excellent side of town, their school district they're looking for. It fits, it like checks all the boxes. They love the home and they're super excited. And then the inspection report comes back, and it is a lengthy report, and they get scared away. They back out. They get cold feet. And the problem is that, like, there is nothing wrong with backing out of a transaction if it is not the right home for you, or if you obviously if you come to the point to realize there's too much going on. Like, that is not what I'm saying. However, I've seen this happen where the buyers back out because there's this super, super long list. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to ask questions. And what they don't realize is that although it looks scary and daunting, what I know, because I've seen so many of these reports, is these things that they are on the list are all super inexpensive, easy. You know,
and it's normal.
A lot of them are not expensive fixes. And if you really added up everything, it's not that bad. It just looks scary because it's a long list.
Totally.
So don't let that happen to you.
And remember, like I said, the inspector's job is to be thorough. Yes, you pay $450. Their goal in reality is to try and get that back for you to negotiate on or just reduce sales price by that much.
Yeah.
Now, not all markets that's allowed. I mean, there's some situations there's just really no negotiation to do. But right now we are in a market where we can try and get you money back in right of repair addendum for items, and sellers are usually more than willing to do them right now, or just step up and pay a portion of your closing costs.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things on a report. Now, at the end of the day, if I'm not going to buy a house because a electrical reciprocal behind the countertop isn't grounded right, that's a problem. You know, that's a $2 item that you can easily replace yourself. And usually on every home inspection report, that happens. That comes up. There's usually a bad, faulty ground in one of these receptacles. So really think long-term wise. I mean, remember, this is $400,000, $500,000 homes that we're purchasing. On average, we're looking at about $430,000 in our area for a sales price. Are you going to let a $2, $500, $200 item really set you back from making that type of investment? Or, I mean, maybe you are. It's totally up to who you are as a purchaser. Nobody can tell you what to do and whatever you're comfortable with. But I think what we're trying to express is, on a inspection report, things do come up. Now, the big things, of course, we got to take care of. We got to negotiate for. We got to have repaired. But the little things, sometimes it's easier to let them go than to really make a fuss over.
Yeah.
Or fuss over.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you for listening, you guys. If you enjoy real estate, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we come on here every single week and we talk all about real estate, and we'll see you next week.